a country steeped in history, art, and timeless beauty. From the winding cobblestone streets of Rome, where ancient ruins stand beside vibrant city life, to the breathtaking hilltops of Montepulciano, nestled in the heart of Tuscany's wine country. Italy captures the imagination like few places on Earth, and for many North Americans, it begins as a dream vacation. But for a growing number, that dream has become a permanent reality. These are the stories and the new dream homes of 5 North Americans who've left it all behind for their new life in Italy.
I mean, the problem with Italy is that there's an embarrassment of riches. Hi, my name is Ulrik. I was born in Los Angeles, California. I now live in Rome, Italy.
I'm Lisa, and I'm from Los Angeles, where I was a studio executive and a film producer, and now I live in Rome. I just started working at a company called Scott Free. Ridley Scott was my boss, and so he invited me to come meet him in Florence. And so I said, yeah, it's quite a way to fall in love with the country. We were lucky because we really had the opportunity to travel a lot, both for work and for pleasure. So we've been to 67 countries.
All I could do was curse myself for not having come to this country beforehand.
Yeah.
Because I'd lived in Sweden, I'd lived in France, I'd lived everywhere, but I'd never been to Italy in my entire life. And I was kicking myself. Why did I never come here?
Right, I had lived in Denmark and France, and we had never come here.
Yeah, so we became instantly enamored of this country and its culture, and then we kept coming back every couple of years. As I'm fond of telling people, this is really 20 individual countries which have been bonded together by unification. And each one has its own distinct character, and each one of them is a marvel in their own right. There is no greater country on earth aesthetically, for beauty, for architecture, for art. This has got to be the greatest country on earth.
We came over for a house hunting trip
We did.
about 5 years ago, and we looked all around.
And so our resolution was that we would place ourselves in places of interest. We put ourselves in Rome because we knew that was an interesting city. So really our attitude was, let's cast a wide net and not rush to make any decisions. Because as long as we're forced to be isolated anyway, why not isolate ourselves in a different place? And you know, one of the things I enjoyed most in my life was living in other countries where I got to learn the language and understand the culture more than a tourist. And I thought, well, this is an opportunity. You know, we can do what we've always wanted to do, which is we can move to the most beautiful, wonderful country on earth, Italy, and immerse ourselves in a way we can't when we do these 2-week or 5-week visits.
Ciao gruppi!
Di ciao, Ruby, di ciao.
Tutto bene?
Tutto benissimo.
Vogliamo controllare il peso intanto?
Sì.
Andiamo!
Okay, Groovy, pesa.
Vieni!
Studying the language is essential because the language is the key that unlocks the culture.
Every second that you work on the language adds up, but it's still never enough. I mean, when we arrived in Italy, I think within a few days, we went to the Italian school and we signed up for an immersion class.
I mean, I say until I can quote Dante freely, I don't feel like I've really scratched the surface.
I think it's endless. Every day we still study. We read Italian, we watch Italian TV. It's an endless journey.
We were advised that the pilot on whatever plane you're taking should be presented with a photograph of your animal looking as cute as possible, so that the pilot would keep in mind that he's carrying precious cargo and not do anything to risk.
You know, microchips, the rabies shots everything had to be within a certain time period, within a certain order. And then when we got here, we had to find a new vet. And ultimately getting passports. We have a dog and a cat. The cat was relatively easy.
Yeah, both of our animals are now official EU citizens. And so whenever we cross borders, we're very proud to display their passports.
It was hard for us to figure out where we were living without seeing it in advance. You know, we had to pick an apartment based on the photos online.
This is one of the famously strange aspects of moving to Italy, is that you have to have a place already leased before you come here for the first time. It so happened the place we stayed in first in Lucca was gorgeous. It was like this. It was a 16th century palazzo which had been subdivided with high ceilings and wood beams, and it was absolutely beautiful.
Hello, my name is Ulrik. Come on in. Well, we live in Rome because we're attracted to the city's history as well as its art and architecture. And the good news for foreigners like me and Lisa is that there's a lot of high quality antiques which are available because, fortunately, Italians actually aren't crazy about old stuff for the most part. I would like to point out this lamp, which I think is extraordinary. It depicts a couple of griffins, which are interesting beings. This tapestry shows a classic Italian scene, which is a boar hunt conducted by spears. And this is in 2D, it's fabric. But the 3D result of the hunt is right over there. That's the actual boar that's depicted in this tapestry. And this is the boar that was depicted in that tapestry you were just looking at. It's a genuine wild boar. Those are its real teeth. And these are the spears which were used to bring him down. By the way, he was dead long before we moved here, so don't blame me for this. I'm actually an animal lover. Many people who come to our apartment have the same question. Did all this exist when you moved here? A lot of it did, but not all of it. For instance, we acquired this after we moved here because we felt the room just needed this. Now, don't ask me to justify that. This painting is a favorite of mine. It was painted in 1945 by an obscure Italian artist who lived in Rome. This apartment was occupied by Leo XIII, the Pope, who died in 1903. But when he was a cardinal, he lived very humbly, and this was his apartment. It's possible this is a depiction of him, but it's very, very, very unlikely. I speculate that he's serving this kid saltwater taffy, but Lisa strongly disagrees with this interpretation. Now, this armoire we searched for quite a long while before finding because I wanted an armoire of certain dimensions. Here's the problem. Guess what Europeans don't have? Closets. So if you want to store your stuff, you're pretty much obliged to get at least one armoire, in some instances 2 or 3. Here's what's really interesting. So this animal, which is depicted here, is again a griffin. And a griffin is half eagle, which is the king of the air, and half lion, the king of the ground. And ancient Romans believed that this particular animal, with its combination of grates, was the best way to protect your valuables. By the way, Lisa and I assembled this in one night and almost killed ourselves. Okay, this is our dining room. As you can see, it theoretically seats 8. The chandelier is Venetian glass, famous for its high quality. This is our kitchen. This light fixture is something I was particularly pleased by because it depicts dragons. And the dragon's exhalations of fire are where the light bulbs go. So it's a kind of perfect melding of old technology and new technology. Old technology being dragons. This is our master bedroom. One of the best things about this room is how high the ceiling is, which is true of all the rooms. But when you're in a smaller room, you feel the height more acutely. And I think it's very, very nice. This is a peculiar floor standing light support. This is actually all made out of wood. There are few rational decisions you can make about places to live in Italy, and the reason is because there's so many possibilities. So it's hard to say, well, here's a clear winner and we can exclude all these other places. You cannot do that. However, if you want a place which is the largest assortment of monuments of antiquity on earth, that's Rome. So Lisa and I happen to love those things. We love antiquities.
And we figured, we should at least try living here. I know that a lot of people discourage it because they say it's overwhelming. It's a very busy, very dense city with a lot of narrow roads. So it's clearly going to be challenging to live here, but it's also deeply rewarding. And if antiquities are your thing, we live 100 meters from the Pantheon, arguably the most beautiful building on earth. And so we can stroll there anytime and walk through. We're also very close to the Forum. So if we want to go, for instance, to see where Julius Caesar lost his life, he had an incident with knives, we can go visit that. Rome is so stuffed with history that you pretty much can't, go shopping for a slice of cheese without encountering some aspect of the ancient past. It's actually a conglomeration of many little neighborhoods, and each neighborhood operates like an independent unit. It has its own groceries and its own pharmacy, and it has its own vet, and you can live very comfortably within the confines of your quartiere, as they call it, the neighborhood. So everyone within our range is very, very friendly and very warm, and the feeling is like a small town, right, but within the context of a large city.
Right. We changed gears from dreaming about it, the what if, to how. And really that was Smart Move Italy and Samantha Wilson and the boot camp, because you don't even, it's such a big question, so many, your brain spins at all the things you would have to do to change your life so radically. But this boot camp kind of breaks down one step at a time, one thing to consider at a time, where you start to learn about all the practicalities and where you began on the journey and each step and how you would do it. And once those questions started getting answered
and crystallized.
Right.
By the way, Samantha Wilson uses an expression which I still think about to this day. She said, to come to live in Italy, it's a long runway. This is Ulrik signing off, and it's been a pleasure to lead you on a tour of our apartment here in Rome, Italy.
My name is Eric Beal. I am a writer. I was born in Portland, Oregon, and lived most of my life in New York City. Now, I live in Rome, Italy, and also have a home in Le Marche, Italy, which is about 2 hours outside of Rome. I think I love most about living in Italy the pace. People have the time to engage with you, people have the time to have conversations, it's easier to meet up with friends. The depth of art and history here is incredible. It's always a fascination to me to be able to travel not only around Rome, which you could spend months in Rome and not see everything, but also in all the small towns that surround Rome, and then further out into Tuscany and Umbria and Le Marche, where we have our home, and then of course the whole north. I'm fascinated in Italy by how many different lifestyles, how many different types of culture are represented in a country that's actually physically very small. I think Italy is about half the size of Texas, and yet you can go from life in the mountains, which is a very particular thing, to big city life like Milan and Rome. Each place also has its own culture. They have their own ways of cooking, they have their own schedules. I'm never bored living in Italy. The people are characters, from the guy that runs the salumeria downstairs to the coffee shop. They're all interesting characters.
This is a spot I found just a couple blocks from the apartment, and I love it because it's a tourist street, but this has everybody, all kind of locals. And Simone, the guy who owns it, is fantastic. It's been here for many, many years, and I just feel so at home here. There's always a newspaper around so I can practice my Italian. Welcome to our apartment on Borgo Pio. This is the kitchen. I think my favorite part of it is the window, actually. Not because it has such an amazing view, but I love
the sort of classical architecture right outside of it. It's a nice way to wake up in the morning. On our right is the bedroom, which we really like. And I think our favorite part of it, again, is probably the windows. There's a beautiful courtyard outside. We have parrots that come every morning and hang out in the trees, which have become our friends. Pasquale the parrot is our main guy. I don't think Pasquale is here now. He usually comes around lunch. So if we come out of the bedroom, we have our hallway here, and then we have the living room on the left, where we live most of our life. We usually do dinner at the dining room table, but it's very comfortable. It's very easy. Most of the furniture it came with the apartment, which was great for us because we really didn't want to bring furniture from New York. We were able to bring a lot of our artwork, which is nice. It makes it feel like home, and it reflects sort of our experience through life, which was collecting these various pieces. This one is one we bought in Paris. This one is a New York-based artist. It was very influenced by Artemisia Gentileschi, one of the first well-known female painters of the Renaissance. She used to live not very far from here on Via Margutta, over by Piazza del Popolo. So we feel like we sort of repatriated this particular painting. And this one over here came from an artist in Le Marche, where we have our other home. It's a kind of eclectic collection of art, but each piece has a story for us. My first memory of Italy was our honeymoon. It was just such a vivid moment to see something that had existed in postcards for me. Somehow it never occurs to you that these things really do exist. They are not mythical places dreamed up by filmmakers, but they really are there. There's a culture there, there's a way of life there. That was really fascinating to me. We have said many times, how did this ever happen? How did we wind up here? And I think what really started it is we read an article about an area called Le Marche. It's near Tuscany and Umbria on the Adriatic coast. And we were actually on our way to see another house, and the person who was taking us around took a shortcut, and suddenly we looked out the side of the window and we saw an old falling down farmhouse on the side of the road. It was completely in ruins. It had all four walls, but there were some holes in the walls. Some of the floors you couldn't walk on. It had been abandoned probably in the mid-60s. So we went up to the town and they found the person that owned the house. 25 minutes later, we were sitting in someone's living room talking about possibly buying this house. We knew right away that it was the house. During the season, it has sunflowers almost all the way around it. So it's in the countryside, but it's not far from a town. It was interesting because the farmer became our neighbor because he owns all the land around us. It's an interesting experience, but it was one of the best experiences of our life in the end. It was a big time commitment. You have to make decisions, and often you need to be there to do it. But it was great, and honestly, I was happy that we went as often as we did. By that time, we felt almost local. It can be pretty costly to restore these homes. We were very fortunate. Our renovation went very well. We felt strongly that we wanted to restore the home in a way that was relatively true to the Italian farmhouse. We had a very good builder, and it went relatively smoothly, but it's intimidating. The more you're willing to work within the Italian system, the easier it is. There's a knowledge that the people there have gained over years, knowing the terrain, knowing the weather, knowing the kind of land that you're building on. The walls, it now looks like a home. The wood beams are in place, the tiles are in place. That was the moment when both my wife and I sort of looked at each other and said, I can't believe this has happened. It was something that the whole village was happy about, really. I became aware of Smart Move, and I thought, well, this sounds like what we need. And I reached out and contacted them. And I knew kind of right away, I think this person is the person that can help us. They were able to address all of the roadblocks that we hit previously. They had solutions for those right off the bat. It made a huge difference working with Smart Move, working with an attorney who really was able to look ahead in the process. That's what made a big difference for us. Thankfully, the main problems that we had, Smart Move had answers for immediately. They said, yes, we know this problem, we have found ways to work around it, and that made all the difference for us. That's the apartment on Borgo Pio. It's not big, but it's perfect for 2 people, and we love it here. We're so glad you stopped by, and if you're visiting the Vatican across the street, stop on by. We're here.
My name is Davide, and I was born in Switzerland, in Basel. I grew up in Switzerland. I used to live in Minnesota. I currently reside in Montepulciano. I am a music and podcast producer.
I am Tanya. I was born in Minnesota, but then did an expat assignment in Switzerland where I met Davide, and we were married in Switzerland and moved back to the US together, where we lived for 24 years, and now we currently live in Montepulciano, Tuscany, and living our dream lives.
My parents are Italian, and I remember going to Italy every summer. We would drive from Basel to Calabria, which is like 1,700, 1,800 kilometers, a little bit over 1,000 miles, and it was to meet my relatives.
I started my career as an accountant and finance executive, and 2 years ago created Amici Vacations, a travel planning company. We also created our podcast, Experience Italy with Friends, a travel and lifestyle podcast where we talk about our experiences living and traveling in Italy. I think the moment for me in falling in love with Italy was kind of maybe jointly falling in love with Europe at the same time, because it was all began in 1997 when I did an extended backpacking trip across Europe.
My first time I came to Tuscany was in 1997. I came here with friends of mine, and we biked whole Tuscany for a week. Back then, I felt like I could see myself living here one day.
Our dream of moving to Italy has been there since we first met. But we would come to visit in Tuscany and just kind of say more tongue-in-cheek, God, wouldn't it be great someday to retire in Italy? Let's go build our careers, have our family, and then we're going to retire in this beautiful place. In 2020, we were going to become empty nesters. We had had full careers and full lives of, what we would say is the grind, living the grind. Then we went through the pandemic, and it just kind of highlighted that life is short and life can change quickly. To be specific, we were on a car ride, and I sort of just made this flippant remark of, we should just chuck it all and move to Italy and live with your parents. And
I said, why not? What's stopping us?
And
then we go like, really?
And I'm like, you wouldn't really move to Italy. And he's like,
I said, why not? Well, okay, so let's talk about financially, right? Because that's always the first thing. Financially, you need this and this much to live per year. okay, so we could do this and that, and you start talking about it.
I don't know, at some point I'm like, let's either jump, because I can't keep living with the are we gonna.
Yeah.
But we knew if we didn't, we would regret it.
Yep.
And we would always wonder, what if?
Hello.
Hey, come on in.
Come on in.
Ciao.
Welcome to our home. And right away we have here this wonderful living room where you're watching some TV at night.
Yes, and I want to highlight this painting that has been our inspiration since 2003 when we purchased it in San Gimignano. It has hung for 20 years. It's no wonder that we picked Tuscany as our home, because this is what has been inspiring us. Well, this is where we hang out. I have to say we brought the couch from the US and we don't regret it for a minute. So here we can head into our kitchen where Davide is the chef of our family and makes all the great meals. We have our small dining room to enjoy, but most importantly, we have our balcony. And I have to say, this is where we spend our mornings, having a cup of coffee. We're thrilled that we have a view. And as you can look around the corner, we have a great view into the Vatican. Okay, so continuing through our home, this is the Amici Vacations Operations Center. And so you will find me probably 60% of the day sitting here, doing Zoom calls with my clients, planning trips. Then we have our guest room. Not a lot in it other than our bed and armoire, but we love having our daughter visit us so far and are looking forward to upcoming guests. I do think it will be a popular space for many, so call and reserve soon. Then we have
our bedroom.
Welcome to what was the inspiration for our shipping container. It is the best bed in the whole world and fully worth every dollar it took to get it over here.
We had to get a little transformer.
Yes, we had to get a transformer to run the motor because it is an inclining bed. We love it, and so we're sleeping so much better now that it arrived.
Yes.
We went to a restaurant called La Pentolaccia.
Yeah, they're more known for the seafood.
I have to say that's what we love also about Montepulciano is while it's a relatively small town, I don't know if we can technically call it a city, but it has a strong, restaurant offering, and geez, just within the Centro alone, I think there's at least 20. And then also around here, there's a huge offering of agriturismos. So these are farms, usually wineries that also have restaurants. I do think we've approached living here as members of the community and have really made an effort to meet people, connect with people, and help the community grow as a way to share the community with other people and meeting tour guides, winery owners.
A boutique winery called Le Berne.
They're a beautiful winery, very welcoming, great quality of wine, and immediately started treating us as friends and members of the community, which is just more than anything we could have asked for. We went from dreaming to thinking we could just pack our suitcases and get on a plane and come to Italy to like, oh, this is gonna require some planning and some thoughtfulness. And we didn't know what we didn't know. So I think that was the best hope of an organization like Smart Move Italy, was to lay out all the different things to think about and the questions to talk about or get answers to. I'm very content. Just there's a piece about being here in the countryside, and we did try a couple of different places in Tuscany before we decided that Montepulciano was to be our home. And I think both of us, as we talked about it, like, we love cities. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love culture. We love the hustle and bustle. We love having lots of variety of restaurants and, variety in like international food and having Chinese or Indian and such. So there was part of us that were like, oh, do we belong in a big city? But as soon as we got here into Montepulciano, into the countryside and the hills and the cypress trees, and again, the agricultural community, there's just a calm. It's just feeling content that we're here where we're supposed to be.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
We've loved showing you our home here in Montepulciano, our little oasis.
Exactly. So, ciao,
Ciao.
ciao.
Like, share, and subscribe for more stories on the way. This episode is brought to you by the Smart Move Italy app, your free tool for planning, moving, and thriving in Italy. Download it today on iOS and Android.